Welcome back to No Dumb Questions, the podcast where we give you straight talk on coverage, claims, and savings. And my name is Sarah.
And I'm Julia. And today's topic is how much home insurance do you actually need? Because just get insurance, not super helpful advice.
No, not really. So like we mentioned in our last episode, we're going to do a bigger deep dive into how much base coverage you need and what other components that includes.
Yes. And we'll show you some ways to save, of course.
Of course. All right, let's get into it.
How much home insurance do I need? The quick answer is you need enough coverage to fully protect your home, which includes dwelling coverage, your stuff, your personal property, and your liability if someone sues you, and additional living expenses if your home becomes unlivable.
Exactly. And to focus on enough to rebuild the structure of your home, not just match its market value.
Yes, that is your baseline. And if you live in a flood zone, you'll need flood insurance, which is separate from home insurance. If you're in an area at risk for earthquakes, you'll need earthquake insurance. If you live in a hurricane-prone area, you might need flood and wind insurance or extra coverage there. Or if you live in an extremely wildfire-prone area, you might need extra wildfire coverage.
Exactly. And you may want to consider endorsements if you have high-value possessions, jewelry, artwork, etc. And this also can be somewhere you want to consider an umbrella policy, which can just like increase your limits.
Yes, exactly. Like an umbrella.
Like an umbrella.
But it's all up to your situation. And it's really important to understand so that if a covered peril damages your home, you know what to do.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more peace of mind. You know what's going on. So let's dive deeper into it.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So starting with the biggest piece, your dwelling coverage or coverage A. So that covers the structure of your home. That's your walls, roof, floors, built-ins, any attached structures like an attached garage. We did cover this more in depth in episode 2, so feel free to refer to that if you have any more questions. But a big mistake that people often make is that they insure based on the market value of their home, which includes the land the home is built on, not just the rebuild costs, which is what you really want to factor into for dwelling coverage.
Exactly. So how much dwelling coverage do you actually need? The ultimate question, right? Ideally enough to fully rebuild your home from scratch. You need enough coverage to cover the cost of labor, the materials, your local construction costs, and what your mortgage lender requires you to have. A good rule of thumb is the 80-20 rule that we went over last episode, so you can refer to that if you want more info.
Yes. So this is where a home insurance calculator can come in super handy. So this will estimate factors like square footage, the construction type of your home, the location of your home, labor costs in the area that you live in, and it can help you get an estimate for local costs from local building associations.
Exactly. The quick formula is like square footage times cost per square foot.
Yes.
But you want to adjust for like any custom features you may have in your home, any upgrades you've made, and of course, inflation.
Yes, super important. Moving on, we've got other structures coverage or coverage B. So this covers sheds, detached garages, swimming pools, gazebos, basically physical structures on your property that are not attached to your home. And this also does not include the contents inside your home. And the limit for this coverage is usually about 10% of your dwelling coverage, which means that if your dwelling coverage is $300,000, then you'll qualify for $30,000 of other structures coverage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So up next is your personal property coverage. That's coverage C. So that covers your furniture, electronics, clothing, jewelry, art, sports equipment, anything that's inside your home.
Yes, exactly. That's usually 50 to 70% of your dwelling coverage. However, kind of those last few things you mentioned, jewelry, art, even some specialized sports equipment, if you have super valuable items, you might want to consider a separate endorsement, which is kind of like a mini policy for those items, or just purchasing higher coverage limits so that you can make sure you have enough coverage for those higher value things.
Yeah. In general, it's worth creating a home inventory to see how much coverage you need. And if you have to submit a claim, you have all those exact amounts. So when you're buying new possessions, keep those receipts, put them away, put them with your home inventory. So if you have to submit a claim, you have the value of that item.
Yes, that is super helpful.
Yeah.
Even as a renter, whatever it
Exactly.
is to catalog your
Yes.
belongings. So the next coverage we'll cover is called additional living expenses or loss of use coverage, which is also coverage E.
Exactly. So this kicks in if your home is uninhabitable due to a covered peril and you have to move to like a hotel or a short-term rental.
Mhm.
That's when ALE will kick in. So it covers your living expenses like your food, your hotel, and your gas up to coverage limits until your home is habitable again. Your mortgage lender will set the minimum limit, but think about how much it would cost to feed your whole family comfortably
Yeah.
for an extended period of time.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so moving on to a little bit of a different kind of coverage is personal liability insurance, which is in section 2 of your policy. So this will cover injuries that happen on your property to other people and any property damage that you cause. If you get injured on someone else's property, and it kicks in if someone sues you.
Yes, this can be like icy walkway, someone falls.
Exactly.
It can be really small things that you don't even think about. So
Yeah.
it's an important coverage
Yeah.
to have. So those are the basics. But additional coverages you might want to consider include flood insurance. This can be required by mortgage lenders in high-risk areas. Earthquake insurance. These two are never included in your standard home insurance policy. So if you live in a high-risk area, definitely look into those. You may have additional wind or wildfire insurance if you live in high-risk areas, or it could be an additional deductible. Just make sure you check.
Yep.
And then, like we mentioned, umbrella insurance, which kind of increases your limit and adds a cover onto your standard policy.
Yes, that can be super helpful.
Yes.
All right, let's get to some frequently asked questions.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, so let's chat a little bit about liability insurance. How much liability homeowners insurance do I need?
So it starts at a minimum of $100K,
Okay.
but experts recommend at least $300K. Think about like the whole value of all your assets.
Yeah.
You want to have protection for that.
Exactly. Cool. So how do I get homeowners insurance after a lapse in coverage?
This is a little bit complicated.
Okay,
So,
walk me through it.
yeah, if you have a coverage lapse, your mortgage lender will force you to buy a policy. It's usually pretty expensive, and it's to maintain coverage, and it protects their portion of the value of the home. So this is called a forced place insurance policy.
Okay.
So first, you want to call your insurer to see why it lapsed and if you can reinstate the policy. Occasionally, it's just because maybe you missed a payment or there was a clerical error. But otherwise, you're going to want to, as soon as possible, compare quotes for a new policy. Your rates will go up because of that lapse. So you want to try and leverage discounts and higher deductibles if they're affordable to you, and work with your mortgage company to let them know when you have coverage.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. That's really good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So what is loss of use coverage on a homeowner's insurance policy?
So that's those additional living expenses that we went over, right? If a covered peril makes your home uninhabitable, you move into a hotel or short-term rental. It covers like food, gas, all that good stuff to make sure your family's comfortable.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. How do I calculate my home insurance needs?
So you're going to want to start with the rebuild cost for your dwelling coverage, and then add personal property estimates to cover the value of your items, and then choose enough liability coverage to cover all of your assets.
Okay. And what affects your home insurance cost the most?
The biggest one is definitely location. And then, of course, rebuild costs, which factor into location, the coverage limits that you need if you have a higher value home, higher rebuild value of your home, I should say. You want to have higher coverage limits. And then, of course, your deductible. Higher deductible means lower cost, but then you have to pay more out of pocket.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. Thank you for walking me through all of that. I feel like we should put together a little like listener action plan
Let's do
because
it.
this has been a lot.
It's been a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so to figure out how much home insurance you need, first off, you're going to want to estimate your home's rebuild costs. So this is going to be multiplying your home square footage by local rebuilding costs, need at least 80% of coverage, or what your mortgage lender requires you to have.
Awesome. Next would be to make a home inventory. So record the value of your items so you know how much personal property coverage that you need, and keep receipts, especially for bigger things if you can.
Exactly. And then you want to estimate your living expenses to get an idea for how much additional living expenses coverage you might want.
Awesome. And then check your liability. Understand the risks on your property and understand the value of your assets so that you can get appropriate coverage.
Exactly. Okay, next you want to review your current coverage limits. Is it enough? Do you need additional coverages? Do you need flood? Do you need earthquake? Has inflation caused the rebuild costs to go up? Do you need more coverage?
Yes, absolutely. And then finally, compare quotes.
Yep.
You want to look for discounts that you qualify for. Could you be bundling your home and auto policies if you've got a car? Could you install security systems to improve the safety of your home? Do you have any like green or environmental home improvements that you've added, or resiliency upgrades that protect your home from disasters?
Yeah.
You can also address your deductible options, increase or decrease depending on your budget, and of course, just your coverages. You know what I mean? Always make sure you're comparing apples to apples. We always want to make sure when we're comparing policies, we're comparing like to like, but that will really help you get an affordable policy.
Exactly. Everyone's different.
Yeah.
So compare multiple policies.
For sure.
Yeah. Overall, home insurance is a really important financial safeguard, not required by law, but likely required by a mortgage lender.
Yeah. It's your home structure, it's your stuff, and it's your financial protection.
Exactly. So knowing what it covers and how it works can help save you in the long run if you have to submit a claim.
Thanks so much for tuning in to No Dumb Questions. If you want to compare quotes, you can do so with the link below. And until next time, stay prepared and protect your wallet.
You're listening to No Dumb Questions, an Insurify podcast. This content does not constitute personalized financial or legal advice. This podcast is written, produced, recorded, and developed by Sarah Getman, Julia Taliesin, Riley Hines, Sydney Harrell, and edited by Angelica Coleman. Compare insurance quotes by clicking the link below.